Bobrovsky has returned to Vezina form, or even the form of 2019 when he was with Columbus and they took down Tampa. Like he got lucky last night. The Leafs hit a lot of posts, a lot of crossbars, flush last night, and they couldn't get that bounce. But he made some great stops, and he looks like a monster in there. And that can chip away on your confidence as well. But I guess my glass half full on that would be there's no rhyme or reason for why this would happen, but he has been hot and cold throughout his career. If the levee breaks on him, it could really flood. Like if he gives up 6, in the first 2 periods on Sunday. That's what I'd be if you're the. You can't guarantee that, but I wouldn't be shocked if that.
He's got to look like he did in Boston in that game 4 or whatever it was, where he was a garden gnome out there with goalie pads on.
Yeah, but didn't you feel like last night was going to be that game you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like when they buzzed the tower the first 10 minutes, that power play looked like it was the Harlem Globetrotters out there. Yeah. When O'Reilly, you're like, here they go. Here they go. The road is on. This has got 5-1 written all over it. And then that greasy cycle forecheck goal changed the entire game because it allowed Florida to get back in a game they had no business being in. Like the Leafs had to get to the intermission up by 2 or maybe by 3 to say, yeah, we got them. That's how we do it. The fact that it got to 2-1 on that, was a bit of a misread. Tavares falls. Giordano gets beat off the board. Samsonov gets lost in the puck, and it's 2-1. You're like, that's the first time they touched the puck in the offensive zone, and they scored. And it just sort of undid a lot of the good that the Leafs had done up to that point. That was tough, and then obviously we know what happened to start the second.
Yeah, well, Johnny, all of this talk about Bobrovsky, did Samsonov put himself on the clock or a lot more spotlight on him with his comments afterwards?
I don't give a. I mean, I don't. I like it. I don't. You know what? Like a little fire. He's not playing against Bob. He's pissed. Like, listen, the Barkov goal cannot go in. Like, we can talk about the Nylander turnover. We can talk about McCabe fanning on the puck. Puck management, all true. Noodles, don't you have to stop that puck every time? Like, yes. I know it's a good wrister, and yes, it's kind of around Brody, and yes, it was near the post, but it was like not 100-mile-an-hour shot.
Johnny, Jamie saves that even at his age right now.
No, probably not.
Can't go in that goal. Can't go in.
It can't go in. It was
you
a
had the
goal.
old school trapper with the cheater. You make that save.
you cuff that thing down somehow.
Yeah. Listen, it was a bad goal. There's no getting around it. My worry is he doesn't have any room for an off night. And that's Florida could score. Like, lost in all of this, all the chances the Leafs got, like Verhaeghe was in alone. Like, there were some breakaways the other way. Like,
that's as well.
But my point being is Florida's a loose team. The more you open it up, it's like, hey, you know what? Like, Bob's playing like that. We'll go down and play. Like, I don't think there's any margin for error of Samsonov either.
He's got to be very good. Yes. That was my stance on it. That, like, I appreciate his passion, his sharpness. Like, he's an interesting guy to listen to after games. But my stance was, you better know what that guy's doing. Like, if that guy's standing on his head, then you have to as well.
Yeah, Hayes,
you have to.
Isn't this question best for Noodles? Like, I have no idea what that feels like because when you're going up against a guy. But in some ways, it's completely beyond your control what happens in the other end, whether you guys score or not, how he plays or not. And if you start putting more pressure on yourself because that guy on the other end is playing great, I don't know if that helps you. Noodles, you could tell me. I have no idea. Well, but my amateur psychology would say I disagree with Hayes. I agree with Samsonov. I got nothing to do with me. I can only worry about myself. But you tell me if I'm right or wrong.
It's not that you're right or wrong. Here's what you aren't playing against. Like, Bobrovsky isn't facing the same shots that you're facing. I keep coming back to you cannot allow that back-breaking goal. You need to deliver the saves that you can control and show your team, I got your back at the most critical times. Bobrovsky did that last night, has done that in the first 2 games. I didn't think Samsonov was bad in game 1, but last night, that goal cannot go in, especially that early in the second period. All of a sudden, it's a hiccup, and it took the wind out of the sails of the group. I thought Samsonov, when you go head-to-head against Vasilevsky, and we all say Vasilevsky didn't have his A game in that series. What Samsonov did in that series was he outplayed Vasilevsky at critical times. There were big saves when you needed it. So I don't care about the numbers. I mean, the numbers aren't glowing for any of the goalies really in the playoffs when you start digging in on them. But it's about wins and losses and a big saves at the right time. And Bobrovsky has delivered it in those first 2 games. And Samsonov delivered it for the most part in 6 games against Tampa. He's got to find a way to do it here in Florida. So I liked his excitement, saying I don't give an F, but you got to back that up because all eyes are on you. Like, you got to back that up.
Only position that can really dictate like what's going to happen here.
Exactly.
Right? If he stands on his head, then they got a chance to get back in this series. But if he's flaky, they're toast. Like, you just, now that you've dropped 2 games, like if he is playing at a 890 save percentage or whatever, it doesn't even matter the specific number. But if it's a back-breaking goal at a back-breaking time, those bullets have been wasted. They're gone now because he lost the first 2 games.
Sure.
Yeah.
But his
Johnny, what's your
any more
underpant
pressure, right? Like the comment that the pressure is going to be there, whether he says he doesn't care or not. Like, he knows, and everyone knows that the entire team, like, you can't have a bad turnover. You can't have a bad goal. You can't have a bad period because they've lost that margin, having lost 2 in a row at home.
Exactly.
Johnny, do you think Bobrovsky is like, what would your, not Johnny's percentage, your underpant rating on him being dialed in the rest of the series?
If I'm a Leaf fan, I got the depends on right now because I'm not feeling good.
Good.
I mean, they think about a couple things. One, we know how good he can be, right? He's been 2-time Vezina winner. He's been really good, right?
Yeah.
And he's well rested. How many goalies, Noodles, at this point of his caliber are well rested in the playoffs? He didn't play the last 3 weeks of the season.
I know.
He got to sit there and watch Alex Lyon lug his team with all the pressure, physical, mental, emotional, into the playoffs while he watched.
Johnny, he was so checked out, too. He was on the bench. He hadn't shaved in weeks. He looked like a college kid that just been on a bender. He was staring into space. I looked at him and I said, there's a guy that makes 10 sheets a year, and he has completely checked out, and he doesn't care. And now he's Grant Fuhr in his prime. I can't believe it. I can't believe you picked, of all the options in the underpant meter, you went depends on us.
Yeah, that's not even just a streak. Like, that is
no confidence coming out of this guy.
Full pants. That's what it is.
Not even a niblet. You went straight depends.
What can I say? I mean, the guy's won 2 Vezina. He's won what? They won 5 in a row with him in net. They just knocked off the best team in the history of the league in the regular season by him winning 3 in a row to close it out. Then they roll right into, a team that's been very good, that's feeling great about themselves, and he knocks them off, including an otherworldly performance in Game 2. I don't feel good about that at all because, he could go back to the way he played in the first game. Good. Doesn't have to be great. And there will be games in this series that the Panthers will be there to win with him playing that well, let alone mix in the kind of game he had in Game 2. Like, he has another game like he had in Game 2. At some point in the next 3, 4, 5 games, this series is likely going to be over because the margin between the Leafs and the Panthers is pretty tight. Now, having said all that, the Leafs should not be tripping on their lips going down to Florida. At some point, you got to park it. You got to move past it and say, hey, listen, we play the exact same game we played in Game 2. Mistakes and all, bad goal and everything. We win that game 9 out of 10 times. In fact, if we play that game 5 more times in a row, we'll win the series. And you can believe that because that's how much better they were than Florida last night. Now, do I think they have that kind of dominant performance in them 5 more times? No. So they're going to find other ways to win it. But I think that's, if you got to try to, you tear yourself down, you're so upset, you're pissed off, all the rest of it, you got to build yourself back up for the game. That's what you got to tell yourself. We win 1. We play the same game again. We win 1. All of a sudden, we're right there, right in this series. We've been excellent on the road, as have all the road teams all playoff long. We've been good against this team in the regular season. This is not it's not the same as many series when a team gets up 2-0 like this one's over. This one is not over. It's just daunting.